All right, strap in, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into something a little different, the deadliest game. But before you think we're heading out on some hunting expedition, hold on. We're going for something more like Squid Game. But instead of guns and mayhem, this is all about, well, words.
It's really fascinating, actually, the way the source material takes this whole idea of survival games and links it to something we all do, communication. It really gets into how you can hold an audience's attention and how to just completely win them over with the power of what you say.
So are you saying public speaking is basically a blood sport now? I always knew those PowerPoint presentations could be deadly, but I didn't think it was that literal.
Haha, not literally, of course. But the source material uses Squid Game to make a point, a social commentary, if you will,
Yeah.
about how easily people are manipulated and ultimately kind of just thrown away. It's a pretty stark look at how power dynamics work, even in just regular conversation.
Okay, so it's like red light, green light, but with higher stakes than just getting tagged out in the schoolyard.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes that. Those seemingly innocent kids' games, they become this chilling metaphor for choices we make in real life. All that pressure to conform, the fear of failure, it gets to how people act when they're pushed into a corner.
And those masks the guards wear, creepy, right? It's like they're trying to pretend they aren't even human, like some kind of don't blame me, I'm just doing what I'm told kind of thing.
That's a great point. The masks really are a strong symbol. Like you said, dehumanization. It makes it way easier to detach from the consequences of what you're doing. And it makes you think about how willing we are to just ignore injustice when it's easier than dealing with it.
Okay, so that got kind of dark. But I guess those Squid Game scenarios can teach us a few things. The source says understanding those games actually makes us better communicators. But how does that work?
The big takeaway is this idea of controlling the game. The source is arguing that being captivating isn't random, it's strategic. Timing, knowing which emotional buttons to push.
So, to give a presentation that's truly killer, I need to channel my inner game show host. Should I hand out numbered jumpsuits and give out riddles?
Haha, not exactly. What the source gets into are specific tactics, using those same Squid Game ideas but for communication mastery. One of the first things they highlight is uncertainty, using it to your advantage, just like player 001, that seemingly harmless old man who, well, let's just say he knew how to play.
All right, I like where this is going. So how do I use this uncertainty without coming across like I don't know what I'm doing?
The key is to play with expectations. The source recommends you start with something totally unexpected, even something boring. Catch the audience off guard. Make them think everything's fine before you hit them with your main point.
So instead of, say, my brilliant strategy for optimizing workflow, I should talk about my cat's obsession with houseplants. Is that what you're getting at?
Maybe not your cat specifically, but you've got the right idea. The source even gives an example, starting with a heartwarming story all about a kid's school bag. Seems innocent enough, right? And then, bam! It turns out it's covered in blood.
Okay, wow. Bit intense.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's about attention, making people lean in and wonder what the heck is coming next.
Exactly, like a magician's trick, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Instantly hooks you, you're wondering what'll happen next.
All right, got my audience hooked. Now how do I win them over? Do I challenge them to some kind of marble duel?
No need for marbles, thankfully. But words as weapons is something the source really stresses. Think of it like that glass bridge in Squid Game. Every step, every word you choose matters. You mess up, it's all over.
So how you say it matters as much as what you say. The source talks about pauses, metaphors, building your sentences for a certain reaction. It's like verbal ninja warrior or something.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be in control. Control the emotions in the room, build that suspense, and make your message hit as hard as possible. Think of it like casting a spell with your words. Have them hanging on every syllable.
This is a lot of pressure. Can we dial it back for a sec? The source mentions destroying and rebuilding trust. Sounds kind of Machiavellian, doesn't it?
It sounds ruthless, you're right, but it's that expectation thing again. The source says, share a story, something personal, with what seems like a positive message. Just when the audience thinks they've got you figured out, hit them with a twist, something that flips their assumptions upside down.
All right, starting to get nervous here. We're not endorsing psychological warfare, are we?
Remember, it's not about tricking anyone. The goal is to get them thinking, to challenge what they believe, and leave them with something they'll remember. It's about using stories to create an experience, a really memorable one.
Okay, I can get behind that. But gotta ask, is it really ethical to play with emotions like that? Where's the line between persuading and being a straight-up jerk?
That's a great question, and we'll definitely get deeper into that. For now, just think of it like any powerful tool. These Squid Game strategies, they can be used for good or bad. It all comes down to what you're trying to do. So we've been talking about some pretty hardcore strategies, how to really grab an audience. But is there like a next level to this? A way to refine those skills, make those words even sharper?
Yeah, it feels like there's a missing piece. Okay, I can start with a weird story, pick my words carefully, but how do I make them really sing?
Well, get this. The source actually recommends something pretty unexpected. To master language, they say, check out this book, Poetry Master.
Hold up, poetry, we're talking sonnets and rhymes. How does that fit in with this whole Squid Game survival of the fittest communication style?
I know it seems strange, but think about it. Poetry, it's language at its most powerful, right? Distilling big emotions, complex ideas into just a few perfect words.
Okay, I'm just kind of seeing it. So by studying poetry, I can learn to be more persuasive, even in everyday conversation.
Exactly. Poetry Master is like a secret weapon for anyone who wants to communicate better. It teaches you to use metaphors, imagery, rhythm to really make an impact on your audience.
So it's like taking those Squid Game strategies and giving them a literary makeover. Instead of just surviving, we're becoming like poets of persuasion.
That's the idea. And the cool thing about Poetry Master is it breaks down these complex poetry techniques, makes them easy to understand even if you're not a writer.
All right, I'm sold. But let's go back to Squid Game for a minute. We talked about uncertainty, powerful words, even messing with trust. How does it all come together to create a communication strategy that actually works?
It's all about psychology, figuring out how your audience thinks. You got to know how to get their attention, keep them interested, and leave them with a message they'll remember.
So it's like a carefully planned dance.
Mhm.
Every move designed to get a specific reaction.
Exactly. Think of it like building a house. You need a strong foundation, good framing, and a roof that can handle anything. In communication, the foundation is your connection with the audience, the framing is your message, and the roof is the impact you create.
Okay, I like the analogy. But how do I know if my communication house is, up to code? What are some signs that I'm actually getting through to people?
There are a few key things to look for. Are people engaged? Asking questions. Do they push back on your idea?
So it's not just about giving a perfect speech. It's about creating a conversation, a back and forth exchange of ideas.
Exactly. The best communicators, they listen as well as they talk. They know how to adapt their message to what their audience needs.
Makes sense. But let's be real. Sometimes it feels like communication is just chaos. People talking over each other, misinformation everywhere, using words to manipulate and divide. How do we survive in that world without losing our minds?
That's a great question, and it's something we're going to dig into deeper in the next part of our deep dive. But for now, I think it's safe to say that understanding the power of language is more important than ever.
Okay, I'm ready to level up my communication game. But before we move on, what's the most valuable lesson you've learned from all this?
That's a tough one. But if I had to pick one, I'd say it's that communication is always changing. There's always more to learn, more to discover, more ways to improve.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about the journey.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so exciting.
All right, so we've really gone deep into the dark side of Squid Game, broken down those survival tactics, and even found a secret weapon for anyone who wants to master words with this Poetry Master book.
It's been quite the journey, right? But, I think there's one more layer to this whole thing we need to look at.
No, okay, I'm listening.
Well, we've spent a lot of time talking about strategy, like how to build a message, deliver it so it hits hard, and I'm hesitant to even say it, manipulate your audience.
Right, but we also talked about how that manipulation can be a bit of a slippery slope. So where do we draw the line?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's something you, as the listener, really need to think about as you use these Squid Game ideas in your own life. Are you using them to connect with people, share something valuable, or are you just trying to win no matter what?
So it's not just about mastering the game. It's about playing fair.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Because once you understand how powerful language can be, you also start to see how it can be used against you.
So it's a double-edged sword. We can use these techniques to be more persuasive, have a bigger impact, but we also need to watch out for others using them on us.
That's it. Think about those Squid Game players. They were so focused on winning, they couldn't see the bigger picture. They let themselves be turned against each other, manipulated by the people running the game, and a lot of them, well, they paid the price.
That's a pretty intense thought. So how do we avoid falling into the same traps? How do we become smarter about the information we take in, especially in a world where everyone's trying to sell us something?
It all comes down to thinking critically, question everything. Look at why someone's saying something. Be willing to challenge your own beliefs.
So it's not just about being a smooth talker, it's about being a good listener, too.
Absolutely. And that's where the skills from Poetry Master can help. When you can understand subtle things like symbolism and hidden meanings, you become more aware of how language can be used to influence you, even if it's not obvious.
I feel like we're going beyond public speaking here. This is getting almost philosophical.
That's what's so cool about this topic. It's not just about giving a presentation or winning an argument. It's about understanding how language shapes how we see the world.
So in the end, it's not about winning or losing. It's about using words to build something real with other people.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's the real power of language.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to step out of the Squid Game world and back into reality. But before we go, let's give our listeners one last thing to think about.
I'm all ears.
If communication is a game, what kind of players do we want to be? Are we going to be cutthroat, doing whatever it takes to win? Or are we going to play fair, try to make things more equal for everyone?
That's a question we all need to ask ourselves.
Well said. And for those who are ready to take their communication skills to the next level and truly master language, we highly recommend checking out Poetry Master.
It might just change how you see the world, one word at a time.
Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and may your words always be used for good.